be going through your mind? What would you be thinking about? Hello? Anybody home? Or have you all just had just a total migration of your brain power? You know what I'm talking about out there. And you know me, folks. I'm not in a popularity contest. I don't give a damn what anybody thinks about me. I don't. And you know me, folks. I'm not in a popularity contest. I don't give a damn what anybody thinks about me. I only care about the truth, period. The truth. And it's about time some of you got acquainted with the real hard truth. What was going on New Year's Eve was whipping the American people up into a hysteria, trying to make them do something that would justify martial law. That's why the military and the federal agencies and the FBI and everybody was all geared up and ready to go. Good evening. You're on the air.
Hey, Bill.
This
is Matt from Florida. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I think that guy, he was just, I think he's just trying to scare people and get them into a panic.
Oh, that was just the beginning, and that's not even, he hasn't even started yet. Mm-hmm. That's just the first 45 minutes of a 3-hour broadcast, and he's just beginning to get warmed up.
Well, I haven't been listening to shortwave too much lately. I've been mostly tuned into the internet and the press. I used to listen to WWCR back around 93, 94, 96, and you hear some of the same kind of things back then for some of these people. But probably not so much like the Y2K crowd.
Well, you see, the government knows they can't pull another Waco. Mm-hmm. They got to try and get us to do something to justify what they want to do. And everything that was happening on December the 31st on the Genesis Communications Radio Network and many others was all trying to whip up the American people to do something stupid so that they could actually declare martial law and start rounding people up.
I've been making preparations for quite some time as far as food storage and weapons training and some of that kind of stuff. But that's mainly just for whatever happens to come down the pike. Yeah, not specifically for Y2K.
Just hang loose, yeah. You should always be prepared for any emergency. But
I've been making my preparations since before Y2K became too hyped up,
Oh, I was telling people to get prepared and stock up on 2 years of food storage and water and guns and ammunition and everything 8 years ago.
Yeah, well,
in fact,
I've got myself a 1.5 year supply of food, so I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's great. You're going to need it one of these days. But you don't ever let anybody whip you up into making it happen. Remember, we must have the moral high ground, so we have to wait for them to do something that justifies acting, justifies restoration by the militia of the lawful constitutional Republican government of this country.
The side that fires the first shot will probably lose public opinion. If they don't have public opinion,
absolutely,
they'll probably lose the war.
That's right. Sure. Whoever fires the first shot loses. I've said that since 1989. I've been telling people that, and it's the truth. And if they fire the first shot, and the militia moves against them legitimately and lawfully to restore constitutional Republican government, and they bring the military against us, the entire American population will support us. Yeah. But if we fall into these traps that these people were laying on December the 31st, forget it. It's all over.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Well, I'll let you go.
Okay, thanks for calling.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. 520-333-4578 is the number. This is like high school, see. I just slammed the popular guy in the senior class, rightfully so, and I let you know what this guy is really doing, and you're all scared to death to get on the phone and talk about it. Just like high school. Which brings me back to something else I've always said. America's nothing but a bunch of little chicken cowards. The vast American population, most of them, are cowards. And that's why you all file and pay your income tax, even though none of you can find a law that requires you to do it. Isn't that right, folks? Isn't that true? And here, you know, that's something else. Do you ever ask Alex Jones if he files and pays income tax? Good evening. You're on the air.
Hey, Bill, it's Monty from Radio Free Vermont.
Hi, Monty.
Hey, it's basically just to stir up the people.
Yeah.
Get them all whipped up into a frenzy, and then get them to take action upon that frenzy.
Oh, they almost succeeded. I mean, people really went off the deep end, and you'll hear what sparked that later. You'll hear that either tomorrow night or Thursday night. But they actually got to that point where they panicked. Large numbers of people actually were heading for the hills. Really?
It's sick because the one thing that we need the least is a revolution. We're not going to like what comes out of it. It may not turn out the way we want it to turn out. It may turn just the opposite.
Revolution, you never know what the outcome of a revolution will be.
Yeah.
But a restoration, that's something different. We all know what the outcome is going to be. We know what the goal is, to restore constitutional Republican government, to do away with the excesses in government, to arrest those who have subverted this country and destroyed it, and hold them until they can be tried by a jury of their peers as the Constitution dictates, and find out if they're innocent or guilty.
I agree. I mean,
and if they're guilty, hang them.
Lenin said that the socialism was brought about through revolution.
Yeah.
And that's what these people are trying to do, basically.
They're trying to instigate the American people to rise up against the government to justify changing the entire character of this nation and bring about one world totalitarian socialist government.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Now, Bill, is it just my imagination, or has that network been the same network that Mark Kornke has had that's gone through, 3 or 4 different changes of name and et cetera?
No, I don't think so. Mark Kornke and John Stadtmiller started out with their own network, and that became Truth Radio Network.
Right.
And Stadtmiller does have a show on Genesis Communications Network, but Truth Radio Network is something entirely different.
Because it all seems to me sometimes, I remember back in listening to Shortwave a couple of years ago, it was always the same voices, different names, always the same players in the play, just different character names.
Sure.
So
and
I think it's just more of the same.
Yeah, and you'll never find anybody like me on any network like that, because they certainly don't want the American people to really know what the truth is.
No. Well, I'll let you go.
Okay. Thanks for calling. Or anybody like you, Monty. 520-333-4578. Monty runs Radio Free Vermont, which carries this broadcast and other good broadcasts, and he does his own broadcasting in Vermont. He has successfully whipped the butt of the FCC when he did exactly what I told him to do. See, the argument with the FCC is never freedom of speech or anything else like that. It's always jurisdiction. And if you stick to jurisdiction and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, they can't win. It's absolutely impossible. Unless they stand up openly in front of the entire world and rip the Constitution to shreds. If they do that, then they can win anything they want to do, because they can make their own rules, which, they do whenever they can. Good evening, you're on the air.
Yes, Bill, good evening. First, I'd like to say this live feed on the internet is a great thing.
Oh, thank you.
I haven't been able to get you on the shortwave. So
yeah, you can thank Scott Becker for that live internet feed.
I thank them every night. Reason why I'm calling, being I live here in New Jersey, kind of reminds me of something that happened, 40, 50 years ago, when there was a radio broadcast that supposedly we were being invaded from Mars.
Oh, yeah.
The War of the Worlds.
Uh-huh.
And it pretty much terrorized the metropolitan area here.
It did.
People were shooting at water towers and...
Yeah.
And
what was the name of the city in New Jersey that was featured in the...
Was it Grover's Mill?
Yeah, Grover's Mill.
Yeah.
All the people in Grover's Mill forgot they even had a water tower. They came out with their guns, and they saw their water tower in the night, in the moonlight, in the starlight, and they thought it was one of the alien tripod machines, and they shot their own city water tower full of holes.
Right. And from just listening to that 45-minute clip, it just brought me back to remember listening to that show. And I It's just amazed me that people just don't look out their own window to see what's actually going on.
Yeah, well, I don't think they care.
Yeah.
I think they want something to be going on. I think they're waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. I think they're waiting for somebody to whip them up and get their adrenaline going and make fools out of them.
But some people want that though.
I know they do.
And
they're called stupid sheeple.
Because I was